Okay, this is the second part of the Adobe Photoshop Learning Unit number 7, Photoshop Perspective. So the first thing you're going to do is go to your Learning Units number 7, and you're going to download the Google Street View Perspective base image. It's going to be, then you're going to download this. This is what we're going to be transforming. And you're going to need to download your Photoshop Perspective assets as well as these brushes in order to do some of the flow work that we'll have in the design. So what we're going to do is we are going to recreate this scene with all these different sections. So we're going before to after. Before to after. Now, before we jump into this, I'll just be very brief about this, but it's important as we design because Photoshop is very powerful and can paint very powerful illustrative images to evoke emotional responses to get people really to want to build things. So it's important that we do our due diligence and have some sense of understanding of how things can actually be constructed, if there are utilities underground before we start doing these really beautiful renderings and getting people to sign on. They're great to generate ideas, and again, but understand what you're doing because they can have consequences. Anyway, after saying that, it's a cool way of conveying design intent and exploring different concepts, and can be fun. So again, we're going from this to this. So the first thing we're going to do is download that JPEG image again from your learning units. Boom. And then I'm also going to download these brushes, and I'm going to download the Photoshop Perspective assets. Okay, so I'm going to go here back to Photoshop, and I'm going to go File, Open, and I'm going to go to my downloads. Save image as. I'll just put it in the downloads because it's there, and just save it. Then open that up. So we're all starting with the same base. Okay, this is our base and it's locked. I'm going to double click and just click OK. I'm going to hold Alt and drag it down to create a copy. I always keep a parent in case anything bad happens. I could always come back. That's my base. Now on this we're going to start manipulating and we're going to do this set by set, and I'm using this specifically because it's a pretty straightforward perspective. Vanishing points happening out here, so you see these poles diminishing in size as we go towards the vanishing point in this direction, so pretty easy to follow. So having some sense of perspective and how to draw perspective imagery is important doing this, but the same principles that we would apply for hand drafting can be applied to Photoshop as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a reference, and we're going to handle each section of this rendering kind of bit by bit. And I'm going to turn off these pieces, and we're going to go straight to the ground plane first. So the idea is that we're going from this now first to this. So how do we do that? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do some file preparation. And I know that in this, for me, I'm not a big fan of these light poles. So I know I wanted to replace them with something, but I didn't want to have them as an obstacle in my design, obscuring things. So what we can do is remove some of these elements with some cool Photoshop magic. So I'm going to go in to this, and I am going to use my what am I going to use? It's in here somewhere, you my spot healing brush. Okay, so I have my spot healing brush on. I'm using my brackets, my right bracket, to just kind of make this a little bit larger. You can also make it larger here, and make this actually a little bit smaller though. I'm gonna do that big, and just kind of erase like it never existed. Kind of gets small. I don't want to get too crazy with it. Like it never existed. This guy's cool, nice frame of reference, but also I think this pole, I left it in my actually my reference image, but it kind of gets in the way, so I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that. So we'll replace it. On this guy, it says of hurting us a little bit. There that goes. I'm literally just painting. Kind of don't want that pole out there. We'll make this a little bit smaller so I'll minimize any craziness that might happen with this automation, but it's doing a pretty good job for me so far. Okay. Alright, that's looking pretty good. So I've cleaned some of that up. That was the first step, and you can do this. It's amazing what these tools can do. It's kind of scary. So what can you really trust anymore, right? You can still see some smudging and some obscured imagery here, but if you're not looking hard for it, hard to see. So that's going to be the first thing we're going to do. We're going to call this our new base. Okay. Now the next step then in this process is to create basically this rain garden or a capture system. So shifting the sidewalk over, also changing the sidewalk material from concrete to brick, and then illustrating that in some way. We're going to create some cuts in that concrete section. So how do we do that? We're going to draw it. So how are we going to draw that? We're going to go here and we're going to create a new folder, and we're going to call this ground plane. And I'm going to create a layer. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to put myself on my polyagonal lasso tool. And what I'm going to do is I want to make this a little bit wider too. Maybe this time, last time I was trying to just kind of mimic the size of what this is. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to use this as a baseline though, a base measurement. And then kind of come down. Alright, let's say maybe it's kind of coming down right here. Maybe it's wider, like kind of like that, and maybe it's kind of, because remember, think of things vanishing to this vanishing point, so I'm just kind of coming down like that, and then they kind of twist out. So that's kind of going to be my new shape. Now I'm going to drop just a base color. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to hit Shift F5. Foreground color, whatever I had. It's kind of going to be the parent, kind of this, again, this base for us. Now what I want to do is show you this really cool technique. This is where now we will go to our folders. You can find your own images subsequently, but I'm just doing this to help make this process faster. I'm going to right click and, well, you can double click on this. I guess copy, could extract, but whatever works easier for you. I'm Control V this back in here now so I can have easier access to it. Then I have all these images. So what I want to do for this one is I want to grab this brick paver texture image, and I want to open with Photoshop. Control A, Control C. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to do a Control V. It's a little bit big, so I'm going to Control T for transform. I'll hold Shift and grab that corner and just bring this thing down some. Enter. Now I'm going to call this brick paver texture, and I'm going to call this paver, call it the base color, I guess. And so you can tell the difference between them. Now I'm going to go here, I'm going to copy this a few times. I'm going to hit V for move. That might be counterintuitive, it's the shortcut. I'm going to hold Alt and then hold Shift so I can keep it, maintain the constraints, kind of like it was assigning it to turning your ortho on and off in AutoCAD. And I'm going to bring it over and make sure that they touch so I get that nice overlap so it's seamless. You can kind of estimate an eyeball. I'm not going to make it super perfect, but just I don't want any white space in between them. Okay. Boom. Boom. That looks pretty good to me. Now I have all these copied. Now what I want to do is I'm going to hold Shift over here and come down, and I'm going to do Control E. When I do that, it merges them, and it makes kind of, whoop, got one too many. Control Z. It's our friend. Not the base color, just all the textures. So Control E, merge, and I have those pieces here. Now here notice I got some grass, so I can just maybe kind of poke this down a little bit. So that's kind of, or maybe I'll end up adding to it. So if you have that, I want to cover that up. I'm going to work just a little bit cleaner. I'm going to go back to this and just kind of come in. I'm going to zoom in this time and make sure I kind of grab all that. Not a big deal, but I'm just trying to be as clean as possible. Make sure you're in the appropriate layer when you drop those colors in, so then looks good. The rest of it will clean up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this and make this part of this. It's basically taking this texture and embedding it in this without applying a texture so we can still distort it. So what that is, I'm going to hold Alt while my mouse is over this, and as I kind of roll my mouse down, I'm not clicking. You see this box with a down arrow up here. I'm going to click that. I'm like, well, what happened to the texture? Well, it's floating now. I'm on my move tool, but as I move it around, it's attached or underneath or hidden or masked really by the, this is not really a mask, but it's underneath the layer. If somebody knows the appropriate terminology for this, please correct me. You can add it to the comments. But new tip, new thing I just learned. I saw somebody else do. It's working out quite well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to distort this and kind of give it this perspective to make it flow along this line, right? So what I want to do for that is maybe make this, make it a little bit bigger. Control T. Holding Shift so I maintain constraints. Maybe just a little bit bigger out here. And now what I want to do is I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and I'm going to go to Distort. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to distort this thing. So it's kind of the direction that you want it to go. This is kind of coming over here, or out here somewhere. And this was kind of pinching out like that. And this is kind of like this, like this, like that, something like that. And the bricks are going down. And you kind of just play with this thing and get it until it looks right. Okay. So I'm going to try to follow the reference of this other image. And we can always play with this thing as we lay it down later on too, but try to get it close to where you want it to be. Trying to make sure it recedes. And also remember too, in Photoshop, there's many ways of doing this. It doesn't have to be perfect all of the time to convey your design intent, but again, see what that looks like. It's not horrible. Okay, so we might come back and tweak that, but for now that's okay for me. So I'm trying to create that perspective where again it vanishes into that point. But now I still have this I still have this sidewalk. What am I going to do with that? Again, the same technique, right? Same technique. Do I have that separated over here? I don't remember. I have it. No. Okay. Same thing. Right. So I'm going to keep it here. So ground plane, and I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this kind of the rain garden, and we'll call it rain garden base. Rain garden texture rather. No, I'm right. Base color. Right the first time. And we're going to do the same thing with the polyagonal lasso tool. I'm going to zoom in. I'm just holding Alt and rolling it with my middle mouse tool, holding the space bar to kind of zoom out. I'm going to go over here and just kind of make sure that I'm underneath that. So I don't want to have any peek through right now. I'll build this up a little bit more too, but just making sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. And it's kind of far off, so we won't really see that anyway. Coming down. Tracing this, catching that. I'm going to leave that curve on because I'm going to use that in the graphic. It's good. I'm outside of it now. Boom. I'm going to assign it the same color because it doesn't really matter in this instance. Shift F5, foreground color, it's all going to be gray. Okay, Control D to deselect. I'm going to roll out some so we can see it. So now what I want to do is I want to make that image we had. So I'm going to grab another image. I'm going to go Control O. I'm going to go into those assets. I'm going to grab the ground cover texture. I'm going to Control A, Control C, and I don't need this brick anymore, so I'll just delete that. I'll come here. Oh, that's the one that's done. We'll go here, and I will Control V. That'll bring the texture in. Control T again, make it a little bit smaller. That looks good to me. Kind of same technique. I'm going to grab it in the corner, and I'm just going to start. I'm going to call it something. I'm going to call it rain garden texture, and just kind of bring it over. Same technique. Just making sure there's no white space. Kind of holding shift to maintain constraints there. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to take all that and Control E to merge them, so they're one unit now. And the same technique, I'm going to hover over this, I'm going to hold Alt, and allow that to then click drag into it. And then just move it around so we can see it. Kind of grab this corner, the same technique again, edit, transform, distort. I'm going to grab this and kind of pull it up here, pull this corner up here, pull this down here, maybe do a little shimmy sham like that back here. Just thinking about kind of perspective and how that's working maybe. That looks pretty good. I'm going to say okay. And maybe I'll change it, maybe I won't, we'll see. It's not horrible. So we've got a pretty good start. We're moving a little bit. I'm going to Control S to save this. Photoshop, it's always your friend. I'm going to work cleanly, go into my desktop. This is LU7. This is going to be plan view, so then this is going to be a new folder, and this is going to be perspective. Rendering. Alright. And Google Street Base. So now this is more than just a base. Google Street View perspective. And save. PSD. Okay. And again, if you'd like to play with different textures, please feel free to do that. The next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to add this other concrete inset here, so it actually can act as a basin to retain water and allow it to drain down and not flood out this lovely brick paver section that we've installed, or that we're proposing. So I'm going to do it the same way, so very similar at least, and I'm going to create a layer. I'm going to go here at the polyagonal tool, zoom in, and I'm just going to, in this instance, kind of hopefully do a straight line. Just making sure that really that would kind of go down with it. I'm just trying to eyeball how it would thicken out, so it's not very thick coming. I'm just kind of bringing it back. Trying to keep it parallel. Just want some edge there. I have to go back and kind of maybe shift it up a little bit, but that should be decent. And I will shift that maybe a little bit this way. That messes it up, don't want to do that. I'll fix that in a moment. So I'll just go here and I'll call this, if that happens to you, we'll fix it. I'll show you. It just won't be super perfect. We'll call this concrete inset. And I'm going to actually use that gray color. Well, actually, I'll show you another technique. I'm going to hit I first, the dropper or sample tool. I'm going to sample this, the eyedropper tool, and then I'm going to go back to drop some color in with this. Shift F5 and foreground color, and then boom, you kind of have that. I'll let that go, and then what I'll do is I will trim. So I'm going to use my polyagonal tool again and just come around this piece and get rid of some of that green. And go back to the rain garden texture and just kind of delete that so it's not there. Just clean that up a little bit. Alright, so that kind of gives me this nice edge, and maybe that's a little thicker for you. If you wanted to add some to it, it's easy to come back. And then I'm kind of zooming out, maybe it does look a little thin. And I can kind of just add some to this going down. Not too much though. But just kind of demonstrating how flexible and really powerful Photoshop really is. And then again, I'll just make sure I'm on the concrete, insert the appropriate layer, Shift F5. Whoop. Shift F5 after I do the appropriate sample. Shift F5. Boom. Okay, it's a little bit bigger. That looks better. Okay. So that kind of gives me a nice concrete inset, so it gives me a nice separation. And I kind of get that illusion of depth. What I'm going to do is another technique. And I'm going to zoom back in to this. And I'm just going to kind of grab this edge and try to do this straight and kind of come straight down. And kind of create an edge line here as it dissipates. Now I'm on this texture, on the concrete texture inset it's the actual base color if you want to think about it like that. And then we'll go to a tool called burn or dodge, burn in this instance. I have my exposure set to like 30%. I have my brush set to a soft brush around, so you can go to your general brushes and it's the soft round brush. And I'm just going to kind of darken that edge like it's kind of dropping off, and this is going to help give the illusion of depth as it kind of falling off on that piece. And I'm just going to darken this all the way down, just coming through there, darkening this thing down, they can look good. It's fun painting. Yeah, here, boom, boom. All right, so that's kind of our edge that we've created, and that's the illusion of a curve. So I'm going to Control D that to let that go. Now I'm going to give it a little bit of noise to give it a little bit more texture. Filter, noise, add noise. I'm going to make sure that it's monochromatic, and maybe turn that up a little bit. And as I do that, you can see kind of the speckles appear on this thing. So I'll turn that up a little bit, to try to match some of that grain that I see there. Just a little bit there. So that looks pretty good. So we have a nice little start going on here. Let's go back over here and see what else we got to do. So now what I want to do is do these little cutouts. And to do that, we're just going to create the illusion of this thing popping out. So how do I do that? So I'm on my rain garden. I'm going to use these as these knuckles. Zoom in some more. I'm going to do this one out here first. And what I'm going to do is imagine this thing being cut out. So I'm using my polyagonal tool. And I'm going to imagine that we're just kind of cutting these things off. And I'm holding Shift to basically make it ortho. I'm coming down and I'm imagining what that would be. I'm going to come down here. I'll probably that's fine right there. I'm going to come up here. I want to come up here. And in my mind, basically, all that is then added to this to the rain garden base color. So now what I'm going to do is basically delete that. You should never really delete though. Let me make sure I just pull it over top of it. I'm going to add to this color here by doing Shift F5. And what that does is it adds just that piece to it. So the garden texture is over top of it, so it shifts over. If your garden texture does not do that, then you can just simply move it around until it does. Don't freak out. Okay, so again, I'm just kind of creating that illusion. Now I noticed too that maybe I got a little crazy with my illusion, so I can fix that. I can come back in here to my rain garden base color and you know, just kind of take that off maybe and hit delete on that to kind of give myself that edge like it's falling off. And then again, the magic of the burn tool, I'll come in with burn and to kind of then go into your color and really begin to control to burn it up a little bit. Will make a huge difference if you can find it. Okay, sorry. So I'm actually getting my base here that I'm manipulating and just kind of going in there and darkening that up some. It's important to find the right layer and the importance of that, and kind of darkening the edge like water's kind of running that way, and maybe hitting that a little bit too, just to pop it out a little bit more. Kind of these subtle things because water's running down there constantly. So there we go. It's first cut, and then we'll do another one over here. It kind of comes down, skips to, and maybe it starts right here. So we'll do the same thing. And we'll build this out. So I'll go here. This time we'll try to be right. We'll kind of come here. And you gotta come back maybe. And then come down. And then come up. And then maybe come over. Something like that. And then basically add to that rain garden base. Shift F5. Oh, so ran out of space. Control D, so I'm going to try to shift mine over. Telling myself the same thing I told you about, don't freak out. Bring it over. Zoom out, still looking pretty good. So there you go, there goes my cuts to express how water would then infiltrate into these areas. I can then kind of come back to this and use that trusty burn tool and get in here and burn. And maybe it could be argued we can do another strip of concrete there, but again, this just kind of sells the idea. If I was actually doing the detail, I'd do it differently. But again, we're just trying to express something relatively quickly in Photoshop. So now we have that. So that's working out for us. Again, I'm going to Control S to save. And it looks like we've accomplished that kind of first portion of this. So that's our ground plane elements. The next thing we want to do is add this retaining wall because it's falling off. We want to add a retaining wall to this. In order to do that, I don't need this anymore. I'm going to close that. I'm going to go here, ground plane. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this retaining wall. I promise. Retaining wall, and we're going to build it in the same way effectively. I'm going to create a layer. I'm going to call it retaining wall base color and use my polyagonal tool. I want to have a little bit of a green space for it because I want to have some light poles there and some trash cans. So I'm going to shift this back a little bit. You can play with this and kind of eyeball it in a similar way. I'm going to give myself maybe a little bit more space. Well, maybe not. That was good what I had before. I'm going to go right about here and then kind of come down and zoom in. And this is the bottom of my retaining wall basically. And that means it's a little guy. Hold shift to kind of come up. It's a straight line up. Not very big. Then we'll just come back and Zoom out to make sure I do have some drop. Oop. There we go. And see, even that looks too big to me down there, so I'm gonna control escape and just do that one more time. I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna come over there, and I really want it to be tiny, so I don't want it to be big at all. And then kind of come up right there. That looks good to me. So that'll be the first base, and what I'm going to do is then drop a color in. Of course, we always do that. Drop a color in. Boom. Okay. So now I'm going to use the same technique with this brick. I'm going to Control L and go back to that brick that we had for our downloads. That texture worked out pretty well last time. We could try to take and finagle what we have texture-wise here and drop it here. Or you can rebuild it and see how this works. This is live. We don't know. I don't know. So let's say I have this, and this time I'm just going to have it as a portion of the hold Alt and just click down of this, and now we'll just do a different distort, right? So now we'll come here. Now I need it to distort differently, so I'll try to do it like that. And we'll see transform, and we'll say distort, and see what we can get it to do. Sometimes it's better to go back just to that base texture. Yeah. Yeah. So in this instance, it's better to just go back to that base texture. So we tried. I'm going to delete that one. I'm going to go here and just Control A, Control C, and then quickly kind of make something that's the same. So Control V, that's big. Control T that to make it a little bit smaller. Bring it over here, a little bit smaller. Try to get it to the side. Looks good there. And then just copy it. Same way we did the other one, just very quickly. Oh, not that quickly. Sure, move that over. Holding Alt and Shift together with the Move tool to do this. And I'm just going to come across my sheet so I make sure I don't run out of real estate when I drop this bad boy in. Okay, so I'm going to grab all these and just say Control E to combine them. And then I'm going to make sure I hold Alt, just hover over and click, and then drag it down until I see it embedded. Okay, so yeah, that's better. Now what I want to do is then still distort it. Transform, distort, but easier. There we go. So it's kind of like it's down. And you kind of see it like this. And then maybe we shift this down a little bit. Maybe this shifts like that. Trying to get that straight line and not lose that perspective. It's kind of a little game. That looks pretty good to me. Maybe just those diminish in size a little bit more, just come up so it's thicker. Again, you're trying to just create an impression, trying to, but it is nice to be somewhat accurate. And I'll be gentle on the grading for this part because it's just playing with this stuff, and the more you play with it, the better it'll get. And the benefit too of this is that we can always manipulate a little bit and change it if we want to later on. So that's good enough for me right now. It's kind of the base of that wall. It's nice and matched. And that's just the, what do we call that? The texture. This is retaining wall texture. Okay. So I'm going to do a cap on that now in a very similar way. So I'm going to do a cap on this. So I'm going to just create a layer and imagine a cap is over top of this wall and kind of come down a little bit, and maybe it kind of comes across, and maybe it's about that thick. Alright, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to say retaining wall cap base, and I'm going to use that same gray because it matches what we used over here. I'm going to say shift F5, foreground, boom, kind of give me that nice cap. Now I'm going to create that same kind of that dark line to kind of create that illusion of a ledge of it dropping off. So I am going to, and I can see over here too, maybe I got a little funky. That's just a Control T to transform. I didn't quite make it all the way, so I'm just trying to do it there. Hopefully that didn't kill my angle too much. Okay, that's good. Now what I'll do is pull that guy out again. Yes, zoom in, and do this little ledge. Just trying to grab that. And we're just going to darken this with that come back, and maybe that's a little too much, but you get the idea. And then we'll zoom out here. Then I'm going to grab this, the burn tool, still on the new cap base, and just kind of burn that edge. Has that illusion of it falling off on the shadow side there. And what selecting it does is just protects it, the other part of it, from that, allowing us not to darken it, so we can kind of create that nice distinction and create the illusion of the edge. Should have came up more on that one, but that's okay. Boom. Look at our work. Pretty good. It's kind of fuzzy down there, but that's alright. I think it tells the story. And then I'm going to do the same thing on that. I'm going to run that noise, filter, noise, add noise. Maybe a little bit less this time. It's further away from us. It looks good to me. Boom. Now I'm going to add some dark shadow on that wall line too, to kind of give it like it's dropping shadow on that. So I'm going to go back to this texture here, and I'm on this darkened portion, the drop shadow, and I'm just going to kind of follow that line. I'm going to freehand this one, be a little lazy. And it's amazing what having those little dark shadows and those little subtleties will do for a drawing. Alright, just kind of darkening that up, and you kind of see that ledge that we've created. So now we have a retaining wall done. Control S, very important. Very important. Now we will keep it moving, so that is a retaining wall. So now we'll do our floral spread. How do we do that? So now what we're going to do is back to our drawing and get our retaining wall done. Got ground plane done. I'm going to create a new folder. Floral spread. Hopefully native floral spread. But now what I'll do is use the brushes. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to load a brush. So I'm going to go back to the downloads. And now I'm going to go into the brushes, double click here, and I'm going to double click open or double click. It should load those brushes here. When you click on brushes now, you should see I've done it too many times. Let me delete these groups. Bye-bye. You should see these 20 grass brushes put in. We can just use the first one. They all work pretty well. I'm going to create a layer. and you can see it's huge right now, so I'm just going to reduce the size of it with my my brackets. What it does, it gives you an irregular spray pattern, and we're going to find a floral spray like we've done this, but this gives you that nice edge, funky edge, like it's actually real plant material out here. So right now this is early season and kind of weak, and I'm thinking I might just get a little crazy and put more floral stuff all through here, right? Why not? In this one, so I'm going to say this is the floral spread base color. And I am going to, I can just use gray all the way, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to make this a little bit, be a little bit bigger here. And I am going to start painting on this. And I can't see it because I am on my burn tool. So the burn tool, sorry, should always be your general soft. I need to be on my B for brushes. Still on that first one, and then I'm going to go a little bit bigger. And a little bit bigger, then I'm going to start painting this in. So I think this would be kind of this edge. And as I get further away, I'm going to kind of let it diminish in size. You know, in some of these areas I'll get tiny, and then I'll come back in here too and just kind of, so maybe just spilling out a little bit over the sidewalk. That's okay, it doesn't like flowers. And you kind of let that kind of go. Just really all I'm doing. And as it gets further away, I'm just diminishing in size. Just trying to get some of that fuzzy edge. So it's not a clean, straight, perfect line all the way down. Okay, and I'll come back to these other areas and kind of clean that up. Also, I still want to get this over here, something like this. About like that, I guess. Just trying to kind of hit that up a little bit. And let it kind of trail back a little bit in the back, like it's on something right there. And this will look better when it has a little texture to it. It's kind of giving the illusion that it's kind of doing that and playing through. Looks pretty good to me. And now what we'll do is going to apply a texture to these areas. So I'm going to find the next texture. I'm going to go Control, and it's going to be the floral ground spread. And you guessed it, Control A, Control C to copy it in. Same thing, we're going to be over here, and Control V. I'm going to do Control T. I'm going to make this. That looks good. Maybe a little bit bigger. Okay. Then I, of course, make the copies because I need to make copies of this. Make sure it's connecting. Kind of all the way down. And again, there might be another way to do this. This is just one way I'm showing you all. This kind of comes down. Looks pretty good to me. I'm going to say Control E for all this. And I'm going to do this first one here. Connect it to it. And kind of put it in the space. And image up. You guessed it. Transform. Distort. So we're going to bring this one kind of up here. I don't want to obscure it too bad. Actually, I want you up here though. I think it really needs that. I'm kind of getting an idea of what this looks like. Yep, it looks too bad. I'm going to go back and Control Z that. So maybe in this instance, I'm just going to Control T and see what this looks like just to rotate it. Almost like that better, without a lot of the distortion. Let's see. So maybe we do something like this. Okay, looks pretty good. Doesn't look bad. Maybe I can try one more distort. I can't help it, guys. Sorry. Forgive me. If you give up at that point, I completely understand. So maybe this is kind of just recedes a little bit. Just a little bit. I want to shift it and I'm losing it down here. I just wanted it to get tinier. Okay. That looks good. That looks good. That looks good. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to copy this and hopefully embed it to, well, I can't. So I'll go back here and I'll get another one. I'll grab this guy and I'll put this spread here. So it's still a subset, so same way. Now I'm going to Control T that just to make this one a little bit tinier because the scale should be smaller because it's further away from us. They kind of help with the illusion of depth. That looks pretty good. Again, just making sure I have my plants there and everything's as it should be. That looks pretty good. So now we have our floral spread done. Control S. Now we can come back and begin to burn some of these things too to help make these things more realistic. So to get, again, that burning that edge gives it depth. So I can come back then to actually my my ground plane and go to my brick layer. Another quick way of doing that is having your move tool go to auto select and just clicking that so I know I'm there. I'm gonna turn that off because you can get crazy sometimes with that. I'm gonna go to burn. And I'm just going to kind of come in and hit some of that edge where those plants are hitting there between it. Just kind of give the illusion that these plants are kind of casting some type of shadow and there's some depth that's happening there on that edge down. And then I'll come back to the plants and do that a little bit too. Then I'll do is come back to the plants. And I'll do the same thing to darken. I'm just trying to darken that edge as it kind of curls a little bit and give it the illusion that it's falling off a little bit down the edge. And it's more three-dimensional. It's all about the light. All about the light, folks. Bam. Okay. So now we have some depth. I'm going to go Control S and save this. Go to this other one over here and just kind of burn that too. A little darkness right here. So it looks a little bit more 3D. Okay. That looks good. Control S, save. So we're getting somewhere. It looks like it's kind of getting somewhere. Also, since we're burning everything, I'm going to go over here and go on this and burn just because it's getting there. I'm going to kind of catch this edge right here. And some darkness right there. Alright, just to kind of pop it out a little bit more. Help that. Help it blend, and maybe there's some darkness right here as it kind of comes around too in these little edges. Okay, kind of gives a good illusion of depth and like it's falling off in there. That looks good. I'm going to go Control S for save. We're going to keep it going. The next thing is going to be the lights. So now we have these lights in, and we are going to, I don't need this anymore, don't need that. I'm going to grab the lights, Control O. And I've cut these things out. Subsequently, you can find these elements and trim them yourself or find things that already have transparent backgrounds. But I've done this for us to make it faster. Control C to copy. I'm going to come over here and I am going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this lights. And I'm just going to Control V and drop this in. And this is parent light. So the biggest one. And I don't know, maybe the other one was over there somewhere. I've forgotten already. I'm going to Control T this to make it a little smaller in scale, I think. It's probably somewhere. Whoop. See, I didn't move my That's why you have to turn it off. So you'll forget. So I go here. I think I kind of had it sitting in the plant material. And the other one, I guess I got my trash can space going now with plant material. We'll still put one trash can in, and maybe you don't get as floral crazy with me on yours. But I'll go here, and I'm going to drop it into where it kind of be ground plane. And what I'm going to do is then I'm going to soft erase the E with for eraser. I'm going to get a soft brush and just a little bit of the bottom of it, so it kind of fades away. And it gets caught up in the plant material, and then kind of shift it over to where it would be. Now this thing diminishes in size, it comes down, so what I'll do then is copy it. Maybe there's one over here somewhere, and it just Control T's and comes down and gets a little tinier. And it's in the bushes. In the bushes. And maybe that's too close to it. Maybe it's more like that. And it's kind of coming down. It's even smaller. Yep, something like that. And then if you wanted to get crazy, maybe you do another one down here. Control T. Just getting it tinier and kind of matching where the other one, that placement is, or close to it. Down there, okay. So now we have this idea where you're kind of changing out these street lights, and maybe you even do another one from parent. That comes up here and is, yeah, I guess we're kind of losing that. I think that's fine. Control Z to go back. I'm going to save that. I think that's all we did for those lights. Okay, so now I want to look at Entourage. People are really important to put into these drawings. So now I'm going to do Entourage. And what I'm going to do for that is grab those folks. Let's say open, Control A, Control C. And I'm going to create a new folder. Oops. Control Z. Oops. Edit. Redo move. Create a new folder, and I'm going to call this Entourage. You can have people or animals, cars, all these elements that make life real. I'm going to come in here and I am going to do a Control V. Couple one. And Control T. Hold Shift to maintain constraints to come down to kind of give them an appropriate size here. Walking along this sidewalk. So maybe they're there. Kind of walking along. And they're there, maybe they're a little bit bigger, they're a little closer to us. Alright, so what I'm doing those folks to just reduce the fill or opacity. In this instance, the fill. It really doesn't matter because we're not dropping a shadow or anything on them. We're casting it from this image. I'm just going to reduce it to 75. We'll start playing with some of these effects, but it makes a huge difference to give a sense of scale to a drawing, how big something is and how you're designing it. Now, I want to take care of the lights. Now I want to do trash can to see if I have any space for some trash cans. So I'll go here, don't need that anymore. Don't need them anymore, got them. We'll go O. And I'm gonna open this trash can and see if I have any space. Control O, Control A, Control C. Go back to the one that we're creating now. A little bit bigger. I am going to say now trash cans. I keep on doing that, don't I? Uh-oh, glitchy glitch. That's why you save. That made me nervous. Let me save this. So I'm gonna go here. Yep, there we go. So now I'm gonna say trash cans, maybe, and I am going to then drop that in here, the trash can in here, and see if we can't find a place for it along the wall. It's all bit protrude into the walkway a little bit, but gotta have some pretty. Gotta have something that's attractive to the eye. So I'm gonna kind of place this and get them eyeballing these things to try to get the appropriate size. I'm gonna kind of fade the bottom of this a little bit too in the same way. Hitting E and just kind of fading the bottom a little bit, just to kind of help it hide. And then trash can, and then just kind of bring it down. So maybe it's just one more. It's tinier. It's even tinier than that. Something like that. It's kind of coming up to the knuckle of it. And then all you're creating is an illusion. Maybe it's more in between the poles. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? And it'd be even smaller. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. So now we have some trash cans. Maybe this first one is more kind of pushed in towards the wall. Well, I'm supposed to be behind them. What do we do in the first one? Let me see. Yeah, we kind of have it like right there. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Maybe the spacing's a little off, but it tells the story. It tells the story. So maybe I reduce the fill of those. Maybe those are just 85. That looks good. Control S helps blend the image together. And we're going to do some color correction stuff here in a little bit. So I'm going to get rid of trash cans. Now we have trash cans done. That wasn't too painful. Control S to save this thing. I'm going to come back up here. What else do we have? We have the trees. Trees are important. So I'm going to grab the tree file. I'm going to create a folder this time and call it trees. And I'm going to go Control O and go into the trees and grab that. Control A, Control C. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to do a Control V for paste. It's huge. Control T. Holding Shift to bring it down. A lot of repetitive tasks, which is nice. I'm going to grab this thing. Looks good to me. Now, this trunk is a little small for me, so I'm just going to modify it. I'm going to use my marquee tool, the square, and just kind of grab that base. Control T, and I'm just going to actually just drag it and make it longer. Looks pretty good to me. Control D to enter. Control D to let go, and now I have a longer trunk. That seems more appropriate. Also, I'm going to fade that end just a little bit too. Oops. So I want to make sure that my flow is not all the way turned on. Just kind of fade that a little bit too to give me some. Oop, not too much. That's good. Okay. So now what I'll do is begin to figure out what my placement should be on these elements. And maybe you distort it a little bit too. Maybe it's a little wider. Kind of play with it. So figuring out the appropriate size, I know that for me this should be bigger. This first one. I want them to be able to kind of walk underneath it. Plus I want to be able to see the ANT sign a little bit. Alright. Try to figure out, like, try to get into the center point. That looks pretty good to me. And that's gonna be the parent because it's the largest one. I can make them smaller, but it gets funny when you come back. So when you go to small to big, it messes up the image quality. So I'm gonna go to big to small. I'm gonna come down, but I'm gonna make sure that I'm behind that layer. I'm gonna make sure that I'm behind it. And Control T, hold Shift, and kind of come down. I'm gonna go here. I'm trying to stay in between these. Use this as a guide for myself. And that looks like it's pretty good. I got it almost there. That one. Good, very good. Another one. This one's gonna be behind that one. I'm gonna bring it down here and make it smaller because again they're diminishing in size. As we kind of come down again to kind of paint the picture and tell the story of what we're trying to propose for this site. It's looking pretty good. I can't see my light now, which kind of is not good. That's no bueno. What's nice about this is I can always rearrange these pieces. So maybe this light here actually shifts, and maybe this light here, maybe it's here, just so we can kind of say, hey, we want these because this looks so much better than what we had. If it's that close though, it needs to be a little bit bigger, so we'll just make it a little bit more prominent. Again, using my eyeballs just to kind of figure it out in that way. And this one's here, maybe it's a little bit bigger too. And I'll get the idea of the picture. That kind of tells it. So I have this nice light now and I can see these elements. So we're kind of getting there. And the next thing that we need to do then is to do the fountain grass and then some color correction. So I'm here. Again, I'm constantly saving. I'm going to do fountain grass. And I'm going to grab the last element, Control A, Control C. I'm going to come here to what we're doing, get rid of the stuff that we don't need. Woo. Come here. Then I'm going to go on my fountain grass, Control V, and I have my fountain grass. Try to make sure you auto-select if you're using that as on the appropriate setting. I want to make sure that my fountain grass is actually above my tree layer. So on top, not inside of it. If it goes inside of it, if you do that, just go here, drag it out. There you go. Okay. Because I want it to be on top of it. So if I'm in my fountain grass now, it'll be on top of it. So I'm going to start with this one because it's the parent, so I want it to be the largest one. That looks pretty good to me. Fountain grass parent. And again, the same concept where I'm going to kind of stagger these a little bit. So maybe that's there. This is kind of going to the back. Maybe it's a little bit smaller. Maybe have some more over here. Same thing where this bottom has already kind of been faded for you. So that's nice. And again, just trying to paint the picture of what this would be, what this could be. And again, they get smaller as I go further away from you. Breaking that line, trying to bring them behind each other too as I move. As I do that. It's looking pretty good. Keep it going. Control T. Again, they're getting smaller as they go back. those, Control T, smaller as I go back. Don't need as many of them. It's kind of beginning to get really fuzzy, and that's okay. Again, we're painting the illusion of what this is or what it could be. I'll kind of bring them over, and maybe just one more. And I think that tells a pretty compelling story. Alright, so now we have a fountain grass, and that's looking pretty nice. So now we have kind of a base. Now you could ride with that. You could say boom before and after, but we're going to do some color correction stuff. And I'll show you actually how to make one of these cropped images. So with this, I am going to now do something that helps blend all the colors together. So I'm going to add a photo filter to everything. So I'm going to go here and go into photo filter. And boom, I have my warming filter on, and what it does, it just will keep it as we turn it on and off. Kind of gives everything this similar hue. So that kind of helps bring and unify the colors together in a way. You can also do things where this is kind of really green to me. There's things you can do independently. So I can go back to the what was that? It was in my ground plane. I can go to my rain garden piece, and I can go here to hue and saturation. Make sure that you have this button selected that is the adjustment just below. All you want to affect is the element below, not everything, just a layer below. And I can you know, maybe tone this down a little bit so it's not so loud. And it's not working. Why is it not working? Oops, wrong one as well. I want it on this actually. Hue and saturation. Just what's below it, and try to just make it so it's not so green. I want to kind of be toned down. You can do all types of things with this, but I want to make it so it's just not so green. And maybe I do make it a little bit more brown, like it's mulch in there, so my fountain grass pops out a little bit more. So all these kind of cool things you can do to play with this. Yeah. So maybe I like that. Maybe on my fountain grass, just collectively, I feel like it could be a little bit brighter. So just on top of the whole layer, I'm gonna go ahead to keep it clean. I'm gonna go ahead and put in maybe something that's a brightness and contrast that would affect everything and kind of make it. Pull this out of this actually. Sorry. Control Z. I'll go here and I'll add another filter. As a photo filter, I'll just add a brightness and in contrast, and ask it just to affect what's below it. And then we can turn some of those fountain grasses up so a little bit more bright, and then just kind of pop out a little bit more in the scene against that. It's about creating contrast, you know, ultimately with these pieces. That's looking pretty good. Now what we can do is also kind of adjust the opacity of some of these trees. I think I have this one set to just so we can see the building more through it. We'll just eyeball and figure out what we need it to be. But maybe we reduce those things a little bit. Maybe it's just that much. Just so we can have a silhouette and kind of make sure we can still see the building to have them connected. Because ultimately what you want to be able to do is once you have all this stuff done is grab it, put it all in a folder. Really is after, and now you have a kind of before. This should be in there with the afters. Or should be there with the afters. So you'll have your before image, and then you can say, hey, what if it looked like this? Pretty big difference. So that is the assignment. And then also what I believe I did on this one was just, I made it lighter, kind of in general for everything. I had a photo filter, then I just lightened everything up. I tend to like things dark, but you can brighten everything up and kind of happify it, I guess, a little bit. Help it read a little bit more, especially when it prints out. Things they tend to print darker, so it probably makes sense to do this. Again, you can always go back in and burn and do these little things to help each of these elements pop out a little bit more. But again, conveys the idea. Now, to cut something out, and this will be the last piece to this assignment, say we want to cut an image out to do this ourselves. So I'm going to say people, PNG. Hopefully you can find something that's transparent, but if you can't, that's okay. So say you want to put this guy. You want to get something that's not pixelated. Looks like a good image. It's not pixelated and hopefully doesn't have a water stamp on it. So I'm going to copy image, right click, copy, back to my Photoshop. I'm going to go back to my Entourage and drop this in. Now I'm going to use the W Magic Wand tool. Contiguous is selected, so it kind of goes around. I see it going into his face, so I'm going to turn my tolerance down to like, I don't know, 20. And then I'm going to hit delete. Cool, cropped him out. Delete. Boom. Now you have a person. Well, almost. Person in the white bar. I'll Control T. Zoom this down some so it's more of an appropriate size for where we're trying to put him. Bring him over here. And he's still too big. So it should be more like, kind of like that. Try to get him in a way where he's it's probably more like that, but I'll try to get a place where we can see his face. If you're gonna put people in, it's good to have their face shown, I think. Again, just playing with it again until you find the appropriate size to what this needs to be. Cool. All right, and then you can again, person 2. I didn't need groups here, but anyway, that's fine. That is how you would do that. Again, I might turn that person's opacity down just a little bit to kind of give it that softness. Yeah, that's how you do it. Then what you do is kick this thing out as a file, save as a JPEG image, and we'll put it here, perspective, and then say save. Is good enough. So I have this. I gave you the base, so I'll know what it looks like before, and now you'll have a nice after. Any questions? Let me know.